Welcome to the next episode of the Nest State of the Market interview series. Today I've got a very special guest who is the CEO and founder of, I guess, one of the most successful e-commerce SaaS businesses out of London. It's Andy Cockburn, who's CEO of Mention Me. Welcome, Andy.
Great to be here. Really appreciate it.
Great. So I guess a good place to start would be if you could just kind of talk about where you come from. What's your kind of backstory?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came out of uni and became a strategy consultant at Bain, which was a good grounding, but very intense, but not what I wanted to do long term. And then came out of that and set up my first startup, which was in the group payment space. So make it easy for groups of friends to book and pay for things together, which was a really good idea. Everyone kind of nods their heads when you're like, yeah, that's a good problem to solve. But actually, it was incredibly hard to get going in like 2006, 2007 when I was trying to do it. It ultimately didn't work out, but it got me hooked on the drug of building businesses. I then stepped into a business called HomeAway, which was the world's largest marketplace for holiday rentals, kind of the precursor to Airbnb, which was an amazing business that bought the leading 18 small mom and pop shops that were doing this around the world and then floated up on the NASDAQ. And it was really the stuff that I learned there around what it took to get customers to refer and to share with their friends that made me want to set up Mention Me. And I jumped out of that 10 years ago with our European CTO, Tim, who's my co-founder, to set up Mention Me, and for the last 10 years we've been building Mention Me ultimately to try to get customers to go out and actually spread the word on behalf of brands. So we built the world's most successful referral marketing platform. We now have over 500 clients, we've got a team of 140 people, and we've delivered more than 6 million referrals and $1.8 billion of value of revenue to customers through referrals. So we've really got it working, and it's just such a nice part of marketing to be working and getting customers to spread the word and to grow the brands in a very natural way is very satisfying.
Interesting. And you recently expanded into the US, right?
Yes, yeah. So we were very lucky to raise money at the right time in the economic cycle. So we raised $25 million from Octopus Ventures at the beginning of last year, and are going after the States now in a big way. And that's, it's fascinating. We've always operated on a global basis, so we operate in 20 languages, but so we know that the product works in the States, but actually to go out there and be talking to brands out there is interesting. And we're seeing very different things in different markets at the moment.
And I guess that kind of, you've got one foot in America, one foot in the UK, that gives you really good insight to what's going on in the e-com markets of both countries. It'd be great if you could give us an insight into what the differences are and how you think that both those markets are going.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is that it's pretty brutal. Especially, let's start with the UK. It's pretty brutal. I think it's the most brutal experience e-commerce businesses have been through pretty much since the advent of e-commerce. And it is a phase. We'll get through it and we'll come out the other end. But there's a reality there, and I think a lot of people within e-commerce businesses are finding it tough. Certainly, when we look across our 500 clients, most of which are in the UK. 60% of them, their orders are shrinking year on year, and 25% of them, their orders are down more than 25% year on year. And that is a tough environment. And these businesses have been used to grew incredibly during COVID, and so it's an unusual situation for them to find themselves in. When you then layer on top the changes that have been coming in marketing, the very real changes that you guys are helping to solve, but the ever increasing costs in Meta and Google, not just over COVID, but in the 5 years before that as well, where costs increased 60% even before the COVID increases. You look at iOS 14, you look at the death of the cookie, you've got these fundamental changes in marketing, and you've got a really tough economic cycle. That's hard.
Yeah.
Our view is it's at its worst now, and in the second half of this year it'll start to get better. We're seeing inflation come off, and ultimately all this really is inflation is resulting in people meaning they have less money to spend. There is less money being spent in the market, and pretty much every single brand is feeling the effects of that. In the US, they think it's bad, but it's not as bad as in the UK, and they're kind of already coming out of it. So you've seen a lot of redundancies in the States, but they went very aggressive very early on the redundancies, and because labour laws allow them to do that. But actually, from an e-com perspective, the dip is way less. And if you look at a December order, we saw orders in the UK down about 15% year on year compared to year on year, but in the States it was minus, just slightly negative. But it's much shallower, and inflation is coming off faster, so it should bounce back quicker.
Yeah, we see that in our data as well. Like conversion rates in the UK are definitely seeing an issue, but in the US not so much at all.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Yeah, it's like we will get through it in the UK, and I think one of the things that's interesting is most of the people who are working in e-commerce or in online marketing jobs have not experienced this kind of environment before. It's been a long time since we've had a recession, and it's very easy to get freaked out. But I think looking to as much external data as you can to understand like what's going on in the market and make sure you're positioning that internally within your organisations so that you don't take on all the responsibility yourself is really important.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of, I mean, you touched on the future there slightly about, there being a brighter future in H2 this year. What do you see kind of coming? What are the green shoots going to look like? How is marketing going to change? How should people prepare for that future?
Yeah, I think even without the downturn and the recession, like marketing needed to change, right? Because of all the pressures that are coming, the changes we talked about. And actually change is good and it will make marketing better, and marketing has been going through so much change in the last 20 years, like we shouldn't think we're at the end now, that change is going to continue. And one of the things I think this will force is that budgets are getting smaller, expectations are still there, and so people need to fall back on organic and how can you grow with less resource. And so I mean, that's fundamentally where we play, but organic really means how can you get customers to come back and spend more with you and then go out and tell their friends. And we obviously work on helping businesses to go out and tell their friends. But like when you take that view, and I think no matter what role you have in marketing, you should be taking that view and focusing on like understanding customer love and why customers love you, and then how you can increase their value. Because if you can increase their value, suddenly the amount you're willing to spend on them increases, and like you can make the paid channels work better as well. Mm-hmm. But like our vision as a business is that all brands should think advocacy first, which means you start by thinking about how do you get customers to become advocates. If you can get them to become advocates, they will spend more with you, they will bring in their friends, and then suddenly you have more money to spend on the paid channels and you grow faster than your competitors.
Yeah. And what's coming next for Mention Me?
It's really like lots. So we're working hard on the States, we're working hard on big partnerships, but the most exciting stuff is where we see the product going. And so one of the things we've realised over the last few years is referral isn't just about bringing in new customers, it's about the data that creates, and you end up with a really interesting view on who your most valuable customers are when you can understand actually the value they're bringing by bringing their friends along. So we don't talk about LTV when we look at a customer, we talk about extended lifetime value, which is the amount they spend plus the amount of value they bring in from advocacy. And that really starts to change things. So we're then using that data, and we've done some great experiments with Nests where we're pushing referral data into lookalike audiences where we can reduce the CPA by 15% compared to the next best lookalike audience. So getting that referral data into the right place is really interesting. We can also put machine learning and AI behind it so that we can understand each customer's propensity to refer, which is a fascinating data point and again useful in every other channel so that you can make that more efficient. And ultimately where we're going is we're building out an advocacy brain so we can understand where each customer is in their relationship with the brand and their readiness to become an advocate for the brand. And that really starts to help you think about how do you solve that, how do you get the customers to be as valuable as possible so that you can grow as fast as you possibly can.
Great. Thanks for coming in, Andy.
Pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.